there is globally now this unease that the way that we'd experienced the world was upended. Suddenly you could have something that you just didn't see coming, and it can fundamentally change your life in an instant. And we already have such a sense of uncertainty in the world, technological developments, the impact of, the changing economies that we have, the multiple wars raging. We have a sense of insecurity that the pandemic just exacerbated so much. And I think as leaders, and this is one of the things I talk about a lot, we have options in this environment now. We have the option of actually tackling the core of the difficult problems we have presented to us, which is hard. Or we have the option of blaming others, of saying that the cause of the insecurity you feel or the financial insecurity you feel is this group or this group. And that is a quick and easy way to do politics. Incite fear. It's the oldest trick in the book, but it is the most harmful and the most damaging. And I talk openly about the alternatives because they exist. There are leaders who champion empathetic leadership, who actually want to solve the problems. But what we see a spotlight more often is that alternative. And I wish so much that we can turn towards those more optimistic, hopeful, and inclusive responses to problems rather than the fear that we see people reach to.
Do you wish you were back in it so that you could offer these optimistic and hopeful?
There are other politicians. There are politicians out there and leaders out there who believe in solving those core fundamental problems rather than politicking around them. I see it. I see it. I've met them. I run a fellowship program called Field to support
Who do you
that.
most admire right now who's doing that? Who's modeling that? Different kind of power.
I see it at lots of different levels. I see it in leadership. I think the president of Mexico at the moment is so genuinely focused on the well-being of her people through difficult times. I see it in lots of places, but I see it at, new incoming MPs, MEPs. We need to shine a light on them because I think people are losing their hope in politics, and yet there are people that they should feel hopeful about.
Okay. I asked this of Jimmy Carter once. When you have the weight of the entire country on your shoulders, and you did in several instances, the weight of the entire country, and just in general, as Prime Minister, the weight of the entire country on your shoulders, what is your prayer?
I had certain mantras that would run through my head, and the one that was most common was just, let this be the right decision. Let's be the right decision. And that didn't always mean the most popular decision. I could carry the weight of an unpopular decision if it felt like it was the right one. I could wear a lot if it felt like the right one. But just let it be the right thing to do. One of the strengths of all of those things that I thought would hold me back, of a little bit of, that self-doubt, was actually I would prepare. I would bring in experts. I would use people who had the knowledge and expertise to give me the best possible advice. I would read everything I could about a challenge that was presenting itself. And then I would overlay my values and my intuition.
You knew as much about COVID as the doctors did because you were studying it every night. Yes.
I was mocked for that in some cases by the people I worked with. This is sitting between me and going to sleep now. This and you. So for me, that idea of the right decision was never just about instinct and values. It was also about
having the right information.
And, that trait of imposter syndrome drove me to lead like that. That was a strength in the end. That was a strength.
Isn't that amazing how that works out in your life? The thing that was your weakness became your strength.
Absolutely.
Because you did question whether or not they're going to question, I should be here. I'm going to make sure that I do everything exactly.
And have the humility to know that you don't know all the answers, and to bring in the people who might, and to draw on that expertise.
That's a different kind of power, to have that humility.
And to say from time to time, I don't know. Because it's very different than I don't have a plan. And you can lead and be open about what you know and what you don't, and actually it can build trust. FDR was that kind of leader, and he communicated so directly to people during crisis, during the Depression and war times, what he knew and what he didn't know. And I think people built trust around him as a result.
Who are other leaders you've admired?
Well, I think, when I look at the United States and I look at times of crisis, I do draw back to FDR because there was an empathy to him. And maybe that came from personal circumstance, but it manifested in the way that he did the job. In New Zealand, we have similar political leaders. I remember as a child, our cat was named Norm, and my father named him after a Prime Minister, Norman Kirk. And as I grew older, I read a little bit more about him, and he was asked in a primetime interview once, what, his greatest achievement is such an entree into spouting off whatever policy as a politician you might have. He said the letters that he received after they increased benefits for the most vulnerable, one letter where a woman said she could finally afford shoes, new shoes, and what a relief it was to her. And here was this moment with this Prime Minister, huge stature. He was a solid man with such presence, but speaking so softly and quietly about a woman.
Being able to now afford new shoes.
And it just stayed with me, the fact that he was someone running a country and an individual moment could be so meaningful to him. So I've been surrounded by great examples, and perhaps it started with my parents.